Welcome to the deep dive. You sent us some really interesting sources about Nigerian Gen Z culture and social media,
Yeah,
specifically focusing on this power couple, Pella and Jarvis.
that's right.
And we're diving into their world to explore how, sudden fame and fortune are reshaping relationships
Yeah,
in Nigeria's digital age.
exactly. We've got a YouTube interview with Pella and Jarvis
Oh, cool.
where they really open up about their lives, their work, and the unique challenges they face.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. Who are Pella and Jarvis?
Right. Yeah.
How did their paths collide?
Well, you've got Pella, who shot to fame right out of secondary school.
Okay.
He built his following on comedy and live streams, often using what he calls bad English to boost engagement.
Oh, interesting.
It's a fascinating strategy, almost like he's playing a character.
It does make you wonder about the line between his online persona and his real self.
Right, and that's where Jarvis comes in.
Okay.
She's a content creator too, but she leans towards AI-powered content and values her privacy. Their paths crossed, believe it or not, during a TikTok live session.
So you've got this outgoing, almost larger-than-life personality in Pella, and then this more reserved, tech-savvy creator in Jarvis.
Right.
What happens when those two worlds collide?
Fireworks, to say the least.
Oh, wow.
We've got sources here discussing their very public proposal. Pella popped the question during a paid promotion,
Oh, my gosh.
which understandably left some fans wondering if it was even real.
Talk about blurring the lines between your personal life and your brand.
Right.
What was their reaction to the whole situation?
Well, the interview reveals that Jarvis was pretty uncomfortable with the whole thing.
Makes sense.
She's not a fan of public displays of affection, and this was broadcast to their entire fan base.
Oh, yeah.
Pella, on the other hand, seemed to thrive on the attention.
He even joked about the price of the ring,
Oh, yeah.
which probably didn't help to Jarvis's discomfort.
Yeah.
It does seem like there's a pattern of Pella wanting to prove his love very publicly, while Jarvis prefers to keep things more private.
Yeah, and this tension between their approaches to fame plays out in other areas of their lives, too. For example, Jarvis had to undergo surgery for a tumor, and she was very private about it initially.
That's a vulnerable time for anyone.
Exactly. And it's interesting to see how this impacted their dynamic. Pella really stepped up, offering support and even staying with Jarvis during recovery, despite her initial reluctance to have him there.
So even though they have very different personalities and ways of dealing with the public eye, there's still genuine care and support there.
Absolutely. But navigating fame hasn't been a walk in the park for either of them, especially for Jarvis.
Right.
She talks about feeling pressured by the constant scrutiny and the expectation to share her love life online. It's almost like she's having to learn the rules of the game from Pella, who seems to have mastered them.
And those rules are definitely different for Gen Z from what I'm gathering. Pella embodies a lot of this generation's values, speed, financial independence, and a different, perhaps more pragmatic approach to relationships.
Hmm.
How does that clash with Jarvis's perspective?
It's fascinating to see those generational differences play out.
Hmm.
One example that really struck me was their discussion about finances. Pella achieved financial success at a very young age.
Hmm.
He even brags about buying his Toyota just 2 months after finishing school.
Oh, wow.
It really highlights the immense earning potential in this new digital economy.
He's not just talking about earning potential, though, right?
Right?
Pella actually advocates for streaming to be seen as a legitimate career path,
Yeah.
even criticizing award shows for overlooking the whole category.
Yeah.
He specifically called out the Nigerian Streaming Awards, which is interesting because,
Because it reveals a larger tension.
yeah,
The older generation, like those running the award shows, might still see streaming as a hobby, not a real career.
right.
But for Pella, it's his livelihood, and he wants to see it legitimized.
And he's not afraid to challenge the status quo, is he?
Not at all.
He even talks about his mom wanting him to get a real job and follow a traditional path.
Right.
But Pella dropped out of university to pursue his online career. It really challenges those traditional assumptions about success.
Absolutely. And that ties into another generational difference. The speed at which Gen Z moves Pella's story from buying fake followers to going viral is a roller coaster.
Yeah.
It highlights the rapid pace of this digital world and the constant need to adapt.
And how does Jarvis fit into this fast-paced world? It sounds like she might have a slightly different approach.
She does. She's also ambitious and driven,
Yeah.
but she talks about wanting financial independence before marriage
Okay.
and dreams of a big family.
Wow.
5 children, to be exact.
5 kids.
Yeah,
Wow, I'm already feeling overwhelmed for her.
right.
It seems like she might be in for a bigger family than Pella bargained for because he prefers to have only 2 children.
Exactly. He even jokes about her needing to be careful.
Yeah.
You can sense that clash between their aspirations.
Yeah.
Pella Ever, the pragmatist, argues that a smaller family allows for more focus on personal development.
Right.
He sees it as a way to break the cycle of poverty.
It's a very calculated approach coming from someone who talks about earning millions of naira in a single night from live streaming.
Yeah.
It really underscores those different mindsets.
Yeah, and it gets even more interesting when they talk about infidelity.
Okay.
Javis is very clear that it's a deal breaker for her. No second chances.
It sounds like she has strong principles and isn't afraid to walk away from a relationship that doesn't align with her values.
Absolutely. It's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
That reflects her independence and self-worth.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how these two very different personalities will navigate the pressures of fame and their own evolving ambitions.
It's clear that their relationship is full of complexities and contradictions. But before we get into that, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, Pella's use of bad English as part of his online persona.
Right.
That's something we definitely need to unpack further.
Definitely.
It's a strategy that seems to be working for him. He even says it boosts his engagement.
Yeah.
But it raises so many questions about authenticity, cultural nuances, and even the potential downsides.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's playing a character, right?
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, is this sustainable in the long run? Could it limit his growth as a creator?
Those are great questions. And to understand the full impact of Pella's strategy, we need to delve deeper into the Nigerian social media landscape and the specific role TikTok plays in this ecosystem.
Okay, so let's talk TikTok. What's its significance in Nigeria, and how is it impacting influencer culture?
Well, TikTok's not just another social media platform in Nigeria.
Right.
It's a cultural phenomenon. It's
Yeah.
where trends are born, where young people connect, and where a new generation of stars are emerging stars, like Pella and Javis.
And it's where they're making serious money, too.
Oh, yeah.
Pella mentioned earning up to 10 million naira in a single night from
Yeah.
live streaming and gifts.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That's incredible. It really highlights the power of this platform and the earning potential within this new digital economy.
It does, but it also raises questions about the dynamics of this virtual gifting economy.
Right.
Is it sustainable? Are there ethical considerations around fans feeling pressured to gift in order to gain attention? These are questions worth exploring further as the system continues to evolve.
And what about the broader Nigerian streaming scene? You mentioned that Pella was critical of the existing award categories.
Yeah.
Can you give us some context on what constitutes a streaming award show in Nigeria and why Pella feels so strongly about this?
Of course. So in Nigeria, there are several award shows that recognize achievements in the entertainment industry.
Right.
However, streaming is a relatively new phenomenon and hasn't traditionally been included in these awards. This is what Pella is challenging.
Okay.
He feels that lumping streamers in with other content creators isn't accurate or fair, given the unique demands and challenges of streaming as a profession.
So he's advocating for a separate category specifically for streamers, right?
Exactly.
Sounds like he sees streaming as a distinct art form, one that deserves its own recognition.
Exactly. He's arguing that streaming is a 24/7 hustle requiring a different set of skills and dedication compared to other forms of content creation. It's like running a marathon, only you're doing it live and in front of thousands of people.
And he used his successful streaming session with Davido, the famous musician, as an example, right?
Yeah.
He contrasted the massive viewership and engagement of that stream with what he sees as a lack of recognition from established award platforms.
Yes, he's essentially saying, look at the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
We're here, we're making an impact, and we deserve to be acknowledged.
Wow.
But it goes beyond just recognition. It's about legitimacy. Pella wants to see streaming accepted as a valid career path, especially in a society where traditional career aspirations often dominate.
It's fascinating to see how he's using his platform to challenge these traditional notions of success. He's built a career and a fortune by doing things differently.
And in doing so, he's paving the way for a new generation of young Nigerians who are drawn to the allure of online fame and fortune. It's a cultural shift that's happening right before our eyes.
It's definitely a story that's both unique to their individual experiences and speaks to the larger trends we're seeing in Nigeria and beyond. But before we get too deep into the societal implications, I want to go back to something Pella mentioned about his early days on social media, his journey from buying fake followers to going viral. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Pella's story is a reminder that success on social media is often a combination of luck, skill, and strategic maneuvering. There's no guaranteed path to fame and fortune, and even those who reach the top have often faced their share of challenges and setbacks along the way.
It's interesting that he was willing to admit to buying fake
Okay.
followers. That speaks to the pressure many young people face to present a certain image of success, even if it's manufactured.
Yes. It highlights the anxieties that many young people face as they try to build a following and establish themselves in this competitive online landscape.
And Pella's story is a reminder that authenticity ultimately wins out.
Yeah.
He abandoned that tactic once he started gaining genuine popularity.
Exactly. And his willingness to share his struggles, his missteps, and his triumphs adds a layer of authenticity to his persona.
Right.
It makes him relatable, even aspirational to his fans.
And his humor plays a big role in that relatability, doesn't it? He's not afraid to poke fun at himself, his bad English, or his unconventional path to success. It's disarming.
It is. It's like he's saying, I'm just a regular guy who happened to stumble into this crazy world of online fame, and I'm just trying to figure it out as I go.
And people are drawn to that. They're looking for authenticity, for someone who's willing to be vulnerable and share their true selves.
Now, shifting gears a bit, I'd like to touch on the interview's discussion of generational differences.
Okay.
Pella and Javis offer some really interesting insights into how Gen Z views relationships, money, and success, and how those views differ from older generations.
It's fascinating to see how those differences play out in their relationship, especially when you consider their views on finances and family. Javis specifically mentions that Gen Z tends to think faster, act more impulsively, and prioritize financial independence.
Right. This sense of urgency, this need to make things happen now, is a recurring theme in their story. Pella embodies this mentality in his rapid rise to fame and his relentless pursuit of new opportunities. He's not content to wait for things to come to him.
He's definitely a go-getter, but Jabba seems to have a more measured approach. She also values financial independence, but she's not as impulsive. She's thinking about the long term, about building a family and creating stability.
Exactly. And their different approaches to family size highlight this generational divide even further. Javis dreams of having 5 children while Pella prefers just 2. He argues that a smaller family allows for more focus on personal development and avoids the mentality of struggling to provide.
It's a perspective that's likely shaped by his own experiences with poverty. He sees having fewer children as a way to break free from the cycle of poverty and create better opportunities for his future family.
And it's a perspective that's likely shared by many young people in Nigeria who are striving to build a better life for themselves and their families.
Their story is a fascinating reflection of the changing social landscape of Nigeria, a country that's grappling with rapid modernization, economic disparity, and the ever-growing influence of social media.
It's a story full of contradictions, complexities, and unanswered questions.
Yeah.
But one thing is certain corrective. Pella and Javis are voices that demand to be heard.
And their journey is far from over. I'm really curious to see how their relationship evolves, how they navigate the pressures of fame, and how they use their platforms to continue to challenge norms and spark conversations.
Me too. It's clear they're both on journeys of self-discovery, and their relationship seems to be both shaping and being shaped by those individual journeys. It's a dynamic that's fascinating to watch unfold.
It really is. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the tension between Pella's embrace of the spotlight and Javis's desire for privacy.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit more about how that tension plays out in their relationship?
Absolutely. It's clear that their different personalities and comfort levels with fame are impacting their relationship in a big way. Pella thrives on attention, while Javis prefers to keep things more low-key. And this difference in approach was evident in their very public proposal, which Javis clearly wasn't comfortable with. It was almost like a performance for the sake of views and engagement.
It makes you wonder, where does the line blur between their genuine selves and their online personas? Are they always performing for the camera, or are there moments of genuine connection and vulnerability?
Those are really great questions. And to answer them, I think we need to look at some specific examples of how they handle negative comments and rumors, especially those surrounding their relationship.
Okay, let's do that. Let's talk about how they deal with the inevitable negativity that comes with being in the public eye. How do Pella and Javis handle the haters?
Well, their approaches are quite different, which is interesting, considering their generational differences. Pella seems to brush off negativity with ease, adopting an almost dismissive attitude. He's more focused on moving forward and not letting the haters get to him.
It's like he has this Teflon coating, nothing sticks.
Exactly. But Javis, on the other hand, seems to favor silence and growth, opting to ignore the noise and focus on her personal development. She's much more cautious about what she shares online, almost as if she's learning from Pella's mistakes.
It's a classic case of different strokes for different folks. They've both found ways to cope that work for them.
And it's interesting to see how these coping mechanisms play out in specific situations. For example, there's a moment in the interview where they discuss the controversy sparked by Javis showing a tattoo on her body.
This was during a live stream, right, where she was talking about tattoos with Pella.
Yes, and it seemed like a pretty innocuous moment. They were discussing tattoos, and Javis happened to show a small one on the lower side of her body.
But it caused quite a stir online. People started taking screenshots, spreading rumors, and making negative comments.
It did, and it really highlights the constant scrutiny these influencers face and the pressure to maintain a certain image even in their private lives.
It's a stark reminder of the dark side of social media, where even the smallest things can be twisted and blown out of proportion.
Absolutely, and it's a reminder of how quickly things can go viral. It's a delicate balance they have to strike.
Their story really underscores the challenges of being young, famous, and in love in modern-day Nigeria. They're navigating uncharted territory, and their experiences offer a unique glimpse into the evolving social landscape of the country.
It's a story of ambition drive and the relentless pursuit of success in a digital age. It also raises some really thought-provoking questions about the future of relationships, the impact of social media on our lives, and the very definition of success in this rapidly changing world.
It really does. And speaking of success, I want to go back to Pella's passion for advocating for streamers. He's not just talking about recognition, he's pushing for a paradigm shift in how we view work and success.
That's a great point. It's almost like he's a spokesperson for this entire generation of young Nigerians who are forging their own paths outside of traditional career structures.
Yeah.
He's challenging the notion that you need a formal education or a 9-to-5 job to be successful.
He's a disruptor for sure, and it's interesting to think about the potential cultural backlash and long-term impacts of his actions. Is he paving the way for a new era of entrepreneurship and innovation, or is he creating a generation that's overly focused on quick fame and fortune?
Those are really important questions, and to answer them, I think we need to consider the broader context of Nigeria's economic landscape. What are the opportunities and challenges facing young people in Nigeria today? How is the digital economy shaping those opportunities?
These are complex issues with no easy answers, but Pella and Javis's story gives us a lot to think about. It's a reminder that the world is changing rapidly and the old rules of success no longer apply.
Exactly, and it's up to each individual to decide how they want to navigate this new landscape.
And speaking of navigating, I'm curious to hear more about Javis's journey. She's clearly a strong and independent woman, but she's also navigating the complexities of fame and a very public relationship. How does she reconcile her desire for privacy with the demands of her online persona?
That's a great question, and it's one that we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive.
I'm looking forward to it.
So AI is really changing the game for content creators
Oh, yeah.
in Nigeria and around the world.
Okay.
It's giving them new tools to create, edit, and distribute their work.
Right.
And it's opening up new possibilities for storytelling and audience engagement.
That's exciting. Can you give us some specific examples of how AI is being used in Nigerian content creation?
Absolutely.
Hmm.
One example is the use of AI-powered video editing tools.
Oh, okay.
These tools can automate tasks like cutting, splicing, and adding special effects,
Right.
which frees up creators to focus on the creative aspects of their work. They can also help creators to produce higher quality content with less effort.
That sounds like a huge time saver, and I imagine it also lowers the barrier to entry
Yeah.
for aspiring creators who might not have the technical skills or resources
Really?
to produce high-quality content on their own.
Exactly. Another exciting application of AI in content creation is the use of natural language processing, NLP tools. These tools can help creators to analyze their audience's language and preferences, which allows them to tailor their content for maximum engagement.
So they can use AI to figure out what their audience wants to see and then create content that's specifically designed to appeal to them.
Yes,
That's pretty amazing.
it is. And it's a great example of how AI can be used to enhance the creative process and not replace it.
You mentioned that Java specializes in AI-powered content. What kind of work is she doing in this space?
Well, one of the sources you sent mentions that Javis uses AI to create personalized music videos for her fans. It's a pretty cool concept.
Oh, wow.
Fans can submit information about their favorite songs, artists, and visual styles, and Javis's AI software will generate a unique music video tailored to their preferences.
That's so innovative. It's like having your own personal MTV. And it really speaks to Javis's tech-savvy nature and her understanding of how to leverage new technologies to engage her audience.
Absolutely.
Right.
It also highlights the growing demand for personalized content experiences.
Yeah.
In a world where we're constantly bombarded with information, people are craving experiences that feel tailored to their individual tastes and preferences, and AI is making it possible to deliver those experiences.
I can see how that would be incredibly appealing to fans. It's like having a direct line to your favorite creator.
Exactly, and it's just one example of how AI is transforming the creative landscape.
I'm excited to see what other innovative applications emerge as this technology continues to evolve.
Me too. It's clear that AI is here to stay, and it's going to play a major role in shaping the future of entertainment. But before we get too lost in the world of AI, I want to bring the conversation back to Pell and Jarvis's relationship and the challenges they face navigating love and fame in the public eye. You mentioned earlier that Jarvis struggles with this aspect of their lives. Can you elaborate on that a bit? Sure, Jarvis is clearly a private person who values her personal space and boundaries, and being in a high-profile relationship with someone like Pella, who thrives on attention, can be challenging for her.
It's like they're living in two different worlds:
Yeah,
the public world of fame and social media, and the private world of their relationship. And those two worlds often collide.
exactly. And it seems like Jarvis is still trying to figure out how to navigate those collisions.
Yeah.
She talks in the interview about feeling pressured to share her love life online, which is something she's clearly not comfortable with.
And this discomfort is something that's come up repeatedly, hasn't it? From the public proposal to the tattoo controversy, it seems like Jarvis is constantly being pushed outside of her comfort zone.
You're right. It makes you wonder, how sustainable is this dynamic in the long run? Can they find a balance that works for both of them, or will the pressures of fame ultimately drive them apart?
Those are big questions, and to answer them, I think we need to look closely at how they communicate and how they support each other through these challenges.
Absolutely. And it's interesting to note that despite their different approaches to fame, they both seem to have a deep respect for each other's boundaries, for example. Even though Pell is very open about his life online, he's also mindful of Jarvis's need for privacy and rarely shares personal details about their relationship without her consent.
That's a good sign. It suggests that they're at least trying to find a compromise, and it speaks to the importance of communication in any relationship, but especially one that's in the public eye.
Right. They need to be able to talk openly and honestly about their needs and expectations, and they need to be willing to compromise.
It's not easy, that's for sure, but it sounds like they're at least on the right track.
I think so too. Now, before we move on, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the broader societal implications of Pella and Jarvis's story. You said their success highlights the potential for social mobility and economic empowerment that exists within the digital realm. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Of course, Nigeria is a country with a lot of economic challenges, and many young people struggle to find opportunities to build a better life. But the digital economy is creating new pathways to success, and Pella and Jarvis are a prime example of that they've built their careers and their fortunes through their online presence, proving that it's possible to achieve financial independence and social mobility outside of traditional structures.
And their story is inspiring a whole generation of young Nigerians who are looking for alternative paths to success. It's showing them that it's possible to create your own opportunities, even if you don't come from a privileged background.
That's a powerful message, but it also raises questions about equitable access to resources and the need for policies that support and encourage innovation and entrepreneurship, especially among young people.
You're right. Not everyone has equal access to the internet, to technology, or to the education and training needed to succeed in the digital economy, and that's something that needs to be addressed if we want to create a more inclusive and equitable society.
Absolutely. We need to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to benefit from the economic potential of the digital age, and that includes providing access to affordable internet digital literacy programs and support for entrepreneurs.
I agree, and it's encouraging to see that there are organizations and initiatives in Nigeria that are working to address these issues.
It's definitely a step in the right direction. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about Jarvis's journey of self-discovery. You said she's questioning traditional norms and defining her own path to success. Can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like in practice?
Sure. One example is Jarvis's desire for financial independence before marriage. This is a significant departure from traditional Nigerian norms, where women are often expected to be financially dependent on their husbands.
It's a bold statement, and it speaks to her strong sense of self-worth and her belief in her own ability to provide for herself.
Absolutely. And it's a perspective that's likely shared by many young women in Nigeria who are challenging traditional gender roles and seeking greater economic empowerment.
I'm curious to know more about how Jarvis's views on relationships and marriage differ from those of older generations. What are some of the key differences that you've observed?
Well, from the interview and the other sources you provided, it seems like Javis values equality and partnership in a relationship. She doesn't want to be seen as just a wife or a mother. She wants to be seen as an individual with her own goals and aspirations.
And that's something that Pella seems to respect and support, right? He even mentions her desire for financial independence as something he admires.
Yes, and that's a positive sign. It suggests that they're both open to challenging traditional norms and creating a relationship that works for them, even if it looks different from what society might expect.
It's refreshing to see a couple who are so open to challenging the status quo and creating their own
I
rules.
agree, and it's a reminder that relationships are constantly evolving, and what worked for previous generations might not work for the current generation.
Now, you mentioned earlier that Javis has a strong stance on infidelity. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure, Javis is very clear in the interview
Yeah.
that infidelity is a deal breaker for her. She says she would leave without hesitation if Pella were ever to cheat on her.
Wow. No second chances there. It sounds like she has strong principles and isn't afraid to walk away from a relationship that doesn't align with her values.
Exactly, and it's a statement that reflects her independence and self-worth. She's not willing to compromise on her core beliefs, even if it means ending the relationship.
It's a powerful message, and it's one that I think a lot of young people, especially women, can relate to in a world where traditional relationship roles are being challenged and redefined.
Yeah.
It's more important than ever for individuals to know their worth and stand up for what they believe in.
I couldn't agree more. Now, shifting gears a bit, I want to talk about something Pella said in the interview that really caught my attention. He talked about how he used to envy his classmates who came from wealthier families, but now that he's achieved financial success, he views money differently.
Yes, he seems to have a very grounded perspective on wealth. He doesn't see it as an end in itself, but rather as a tool to achieve his goals and make a positive impact on the world.
Exactly. He talked about wanting to use his resources to support his family, help others, and create a better future for his community. It's a refreshing perspective, especially in a culture that often equates success with material possessions and conspicuous consumption.
It's clear that Pella's values have been shaped by his experiences with poverty. He knows what it's like to struggle, and he doesn't want to forget where he came from.
And his story is a reminder that true success isn't measured by the size of your bank account, but by the positive impact you have on the world around you.
I love that message. It's a message that we need to hear more often, especially in a world that's so focused on material wealth and individual achievement.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more aspect of Pella and Javis's story that I find particularly fascinating, the role of family in their lives.
Yes, despite their very public lives and their individual struggles with fame, they both seem to place a high value on family ties and the importance of support systems.
Exactly. Javis talks about how Pella became her family when she was going through her health challenges, even though she was initially reluctant to let him into that vulnerable space. It speaks to the depth of their bond and the ways in which their relationship transcends the typical boundaries of romantic love.
And Pella, despite his outward bravado and rebellious streak, expresses a deep love and respect for his mother, even though she doesn't fully understand or approve of his unconventional career path.
It's a beautiful reminder that even as young people embrace new technologies, new ways of thinking, and new paths to success, the fundamental human need for love, connection, and belonging remains strong.
Their story is a testament to the enduring power of family and community, even in a world that's increasingly dominated by digital interactions and virtual relationships.
It's a hopeful message that resonates with audiences of all ages and backgrounds, and it's a reminder that even in the midst of fame, fortune, and the relentless pursuit of success, the bonds of family and community can provide a grounding force, a source of strength and support that helps us navigate the challenges of life.
Well said. Now, before we move on to our final thoughts, I want to circle back to Pella's perspective on the changing dynamics of money and success in Nigeria. He seems to represent a new generation that's challenging traditional notions of wealth and status, one that's less focused on material possessions and more interested in financial freedom and the ability to create their own opportunities.
Yes, and it's a perspective that's likely shaped by his own experiences with poverty and his observations of the inequalities that exist within Nigerian society. He sees money as a tool for change, a way to empower himself and others.
He talked about wanting to break the cycle of poverty and create a better future for his community. That's a powerful vision.
It is, and it's a vision that's likely shared by many young Nigerians who are tired of the status quo and are looking for ways to create a more just and equitable society.
I'm curious to hear more about how Pella's perspective on money and success differs from that of older generations. What are some of the key differences that you've observed?
Well, I think one of the key differences is that Pella and his generation are less attached to traditional notions of status and prestige.
Hmm.
They're not as concerned with material possessions or social climbing. Instead, they're more focused on experiences, on creating a life that's meaningful and fulfilling.
That makes sense. They've grown up in a world where access to information and opportunities is more democratized than ever before. They're not limited by the same geographical or social constraints as previous generations.
Exactly, and that's empowering, but it can also be overwhelming. There's so much pressure to succeed, to stand out from the crowd, to create a personal brand that's unique and engaging.
It's like they're constantly performing even in their personal lives.
Right, and that's something that both Pella and Jarvis are grappling with. How do you maintain a sense of authenticity and privacy in a world where everything is documented and shared online?
That's a great question, and it's one that we'll explore further in the next part of our deep dive. We'll also delve into the quantifiable aspects of the Nigerian streaming market, looking at its size growth rate and Pella's impact on it. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, so we've established that Pella and Jarvis represent this fascinating intersection of love, fame, and fortune in Nigeria's digital age. But let's zoom out for a second.
Yeah.
What does their story tell us about the bigger picture, about the Nigerian streaming market itself?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. We have some data here that paints a pretty compelling picture.
Okay.
The Nigerian streaming market is booming. We're talking about millions of active users and a projected annual growth rate that's outpacing many other regions.
Wow.
It's a hotbed of talent and opportunity.
Those are some impressive numbers. And where does Pella fit into all of this? He's not just riding the wave. He's actively shaping it. His advocacy for streamers, his criticism of the existing award structures, it's all pushing the industry forward. He's a catalyst for change, forcing those in power to recognize the economic and cultural significance of streaming.
It's almost like he's a one-man revolution.
In a way, yes, and his financial success adds weight to his arguments. He's living proof that you can build a sustainable career, a lucrative one, at that through streaming.
Yeah, he mentioned earning up to 10 million naira in a single night from live streaming and gifts on TikTok.
Yeah.
That's a staggering amount. It's hard to ignore those kinds of figures. It really challenges those who still cling to the idea of a traditional career path.
Absolutely, and it's not just about the money, it's about the cultural impact. Pella's comedic style, his use of bad English, it's resonating with a huge audience.
Right.
He's tapped into something that speaks to the younger generation, something that's fresh, relatable, and undeniably Nigerian.
He's definitely pushing boundaries. But let's go back to Jarvis for a moment. She's quieter, more reserved, but equally successful in her own right. How does she approach this whole influencer game? What makes her unique?
Jarvis represents a different side of this digital revolution. She's more strategic, more focused on leveraging technology to create innovative content. Her work with AI, creating personalized music videos for fans, is a perfect example of that.
It's like she's one step ahead, anticipating where the industry is heading.
Exactly. She understands the power of personalization, of creating unique experiences that resonate with individual viewers. And her focus on AI aligns perfectly with the global trend of automation and data-driven content creation.
It sounds like both Pella and Jarvis in their own ways are shaping the future of entertainment in Nigeria. It's exciting to think about what they'll accomplish next.
It is, and their individual journeys of self-discovery make it even more compelling.
Right.
Pella confronting his past and redefining success on his own terms. Jarvis challenging traditional expectations of women and carving out her own path.
It's a story that's still being written, but one thing is clear. Their influence extends far beyond the screen. They're role models for a generation that's embracing technology, challenging norms, and redefining what it means to be successful in a rapidly changing world.
And what about their relationship? What stood out to you about how they're navigating this crazy world together?
Honestly, it's their resilience that amazes me. They're so different, their personalities clash, their approaches to fame are worlds apart, yet they seem to find a way to make it work.
It's not always pretty, is it? We see those moments of tension, the public disagreements, the clashing comfort levels with sharing their lives online.
Right. It makes you wonder how much of their relationship is real and how much is for show. Are they performing for the cameras or are they genuinely committed to each other?
That's the millionaire question, isn't it? And I don't think there's an easy answer, but what's fascinating is that they seem to be asking themselves the same questions. They're constantly negotiating their boundaries, redefining their roles, and trying to find a balance that works for both of them.
It's like their relationship is a microcosm of the larger societal shifts happening in Nigeria. The old rules no longer apply, and everyone's figuring it out as they go along.
That's a great way to put it. And their willingness to share their struggles, their triumphs, and everything in between makes them all the more relatable.
Mm.
They're not perfect. They make mistakes. They argue. They grow, and they learn, just like the rest of us.
They're real people navigating a very surreal world, and that's what makes their story so captivating. It's a reminder that behind the carefully curated online personas, there are human beings with hopes, dreams, and complexities.
And it's a story that's just beginning it. I'm eager to see what the future holds for Pella and Javis, both as individuals and as a couple.
Me too. I have a feeling they're going to continue to surprise us, challenge us, and make us think about the world in new ways.
And that's what makes this deep dive so rewarding. It's not just about learning facts, it's about exploring ideas, questioning assumptions, and gaining a deeper understanding of the human experience.
Will said, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Pella and Javis. We hope you found it as thought-provoking as we did.
And who knows, maybe their story has sparked a few questions of your own. If so, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.